All right. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. Season three of At Home with Mark, episode 1. And I am tripping out because when I was figuring out who I wanted to get on this season, there's a bunch of people. Obviously, there's a plethora of musicians I'd love to talk to. But this young man, Guthrie Trapp, I've had my eyes and ears on for many years because of my dear friend, Brad Shapiro, who lives in Nashville, told me about you, Guthrie. Dude, thanks so much for hanging out and making some time, man. I'm super pumped.
My pleasure, man. Always happy to do these things. I love the conversation, man.
Yeah, man. So I want to dig in because for my first question, usually for my guests is the same because I have a super pinpoint moment when I knew I wanted to play guitar. Now I know everybody has different stories. Like sometimes people they just grew up it within their hands. Like it was just in their hands all the time.
Right.
But do you have like a super duper pinpoint moment in your life where you're like, music?
Man, I don't. And here's the thing. I grew up in a really interesting way, and that's all part of my whole story. And it's that's a whole other thing that we can get into if you want. But the quick answer to that is, I remember the first time that music made me feel something.
What was that? Let's go there.
But to go back, I grew up in a family that was surrounded by music. My mom and dad weren't musicians, but my uncle, who I looked up to as like an older brother, he was a self-taught musician. So my family, all the musicians and artists on the Gulf Coast, we knew that. I call it the 1% because it's such a small little group of people down there that are into art and music, and all the rest of them are, do whatever. And so I was born in Pensacola, Florida, raised on the Alabama state line. I call it Floribama, down on the Gulf Coast. And so I was always around a lot of music, parties and live gigs and festivals. Even when I was in the womb with my mom's belly, they were going to festivals and stuff. So I got the music thing was started really from the very, very beginning.
Okay.
I think that's very important. We'll get to that down the road. But the moment that my mom and dad were huge fans of this band called Newgrass Revival, and that was Sam Bush, Bela Fleck, John Cowan, and Pat Flynn. And so that was like their Led Zeppelin or their Beatles in that household, right? And so these guys were virtuoso, amazing new acoustic musicians, bluegrass background, but guys that got out and listened to reggae and jazz and a bunch of different kinds of music. And so when I first heard those guys, my dad promoted them down to Pensacola because they were never going to come down there and tour because, like what I said, there's not a whole lot of progressive stuff going on down there. So he decided to bring them, after following them all over the country, to bring them down to the Gulf Coast. So when I heard those live shows and they would start playing, and creating this vibe to kick into the set, I mean, it moved me, man. I mean, I definitely was moved by it. And that's when I knew, I was like, man, whatever this is, I'm going for this.
Okay. Dude, yeah, it's funny. My brother, I think, exposed me to Bela Fleck at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't understand it. I mean, I was young. I mean, my brother's 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
And he's a big Grateful Dead fan. So he loves improvisational music and all that. But I didn't feel like I understood. Oop, I lost you, Guthrie. Oh no. So we'll wait. He'll come back in. He'll be able to log back in, and then we'll get rolling again. There he is.
I don't know what happened. Was that?
That's all good, buddy. That's all good. You're good. You're back in.
I usually have a really strong internet connection over here, so I don't know what's going on. Sorry.
It's all good, dude. Don't worry about it. No stress.
I do live in East Nashville, Tennessee. On the other side of the tracks over here, so somebody probably hit a telephone pole out in front of my house or something.
I hope not. So anyway, I was just saying, I don't think I understood Bela Fleck in the beginning there,
right. Now I know that feeling.
Yeah, and sitting there playing FIFA soccer with my brother in his room and listening to it, and I always felt like I'm what am I missing? You know what I mean? But then I got older,
right?
So, but what was your experience?
Well, similar to yours. Not so much with those guys because it was, I've been hearing that music for a long time. But the one that was like that for me was and your ear is developing. Our ear is going to be developing until the day we die if we're open to learning and listening to new music. But for me, the first time I heard John Scofield when I was about 10 years old, I didn't understand. It sounded like somebody playing a bunch of wrong notes to me. I didn't, I just didn't understand it. I was like, man, my ear, I didn't know it at the time, but my ear wasn't ready to accept that yet.
I think StreamYard is freaking out. Anyway,
StreamYard is
crap in the bed. Anyway, what were you saying? So Scofield,
they need to do some yard maintenance. Well, no, that was my thing. So the John Scofield and some of that really, progressive music at the time for me, I just wasn't, my South Alabama bluegrass background wasn't ready for it yet. And then as I checked it out years and years later, I was like, oh my God. And now I'm a huge fan. I love his music and I love his playing, and I've never had the pleasure of meeting him. He's one of the guys, my list of heroes that I haven't either met or become friends with or worked with is getting smaller and smaller, but he's one that's at the top of the list. I've never met him, but
yeah, dude.
But,
see, he's what's funny about this is I'm the antithesis of that. The first time I heard a go-go, that was the first experience I had with Scofield. I totally jived with it. And it probably wasn't because of Sco. It was probably because of the rhythm section.
Right.
Because the groove of that music hit me so hard. But then after that, after getting through that and realizing what he's doing, the thing that boggles my mind is how interesting Sco can get playing over a 1-chord vamp.
Yeah. Right.
It's mind blowing.
I don't know if the term is reharmonizing or whatever it is, but he can just keep going and going and going. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like you're that way too, though, when I've heard you play, the way that you stretch things and the way that you kind of explore musical territory, you have that in you too, which is why I like listening to you play.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like that's a lot of the guitarists that I gravitate towards can get creative with very little.
Yeah. Well, that's a big compliment because I don't really have a plan, or I'm not one of these people that sits around and works on their tone or anything like that. I kind of just pick up stuff and plug it in and play it. And I mean, I say that loosely. I mean, but I have never really heard a sound that I'm going for in my head or anything like that, where I'm sitting around trying to find this sound. I kind of just plug in a Telecaster or a 335 into a Fender amp, and it's kind of that tone, and that's kind of what I do, and that's what I've been doing, and it works for me, and I'm able to play a lot of different kinds of music with that setup and that kind of platform. Maybe it's because I'm lazy or what, but I've never been a big gear person or anything that's for somebody that's trying to find a sound. So I appreciate you saying that. I like to play. When I grew up down there, when I was growing up down there, my family had such good taste in music, but the other side of that is a lot of guitar players will go, well, the first time I wanted to pick up the guitar, especially older guys, it's like, man, the first time I heard Led Zeppelin and the first time I heard the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very common answer. And so for me, I didn't grow up listening to the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or any hard rock music or anything like that. The hardest rock music I listened to when I was growing up was like Jackson Browne, or something like that. It was great songs. It was really good. I grew up listening to really good, well-crafted songs.
Mm-hmm.
And not to take anything away from any other music. It's not about that. It's just, it was a little different. I didn't grow up learning any guitar parts off of these records like a lot of other guys. And I think that's a big part of it. I had a lot of different kind of music that was thrown at me. I learned how to play bluegrass and the mandolin and a lot of acoustic guitar. And at the same time, I said about the hard rock, I was listening to Johnny Winter, I jammed along to some Ted Nugent records that some guy had some vinyl, and I put those on. And the Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, some Southern rock music, but not much of that, man. I mean, very little of that. It was way more blues and like real roots Americana, American roots music. And so I grew up playing a lot of that. And so I didn't learn a lot of these guitar parts. And so I think that kind of helped me maybe create my own kind of sound, if that's even a thing. I mean, to me, it's like this. Guys have, as guitar players, and I like to listen to a lot of music that's not guitar driven.
Me too, man.
I just really do, and I think a lot of guys do. But as far as I look at the family tree or the Mount Rushmore of influences, like we all have these guys that we're going to all agree on, like Jimi Hendrix and B.B. King or Albert King or Stevie Ray Vaughan, whatever it is. There's this like 5 guys that we're all going to go, oh well, of course we love that guy. But then as that family tree of influences gets more and more diverse, and me and you are going to agree on maybe like 5 or 6 guys, let's just use that as an example. Then as it gets farther and farther down, I might go, well, I like bluegrass and I like Cuban music and I like Hungarian gypsy music. And you might go, well, I'm with you on the Cuban stuff, but I'm not really digging the Romanian gypsy music. That's where I like to listen to classical music. And you know what? As those things, the more music that we all love and listen to, and as those influences get more and more diverse, that's where we end up having our own sound. Yep. Because we're being influenced by all these different things. And it could be, I don't care what it is. It could be anything. It could be anything from New Orleans funk to polkas. I mean, I don't know, whatever it is. But I mean, I think that's what I've learned is like the guys that I really respect musically are the ones that are 70 years old and still excited about music and still listening to a lot of stuff and sending me new records to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Rhodes turned me on to Tenari when those guys from Africa, man. I mean, I've been listening to those guys forever. Billy Gibbons has been sending me all this old blues stuff that he's been digging up. And so I'm getting hit from all angles from guys like that. I go, wow, man, this is pretty cool stuff, man.
Yeah. I love that, dude. I love discovering new stuff. And I love to start discovering stuff that's new to me that has a gigantic back catalog, like John Cleary. When I found John Cleary, I was like, holy crap. Oh my gosh. He's got like 10 records. I can go in and listen to all these records and just soak it in. I love that stuff.
Funky stuff, man.
Dude.
Good Lord, that guy.
Yeah. Dude. He's like one of those cats that I'm like, why isn't he gigantic right now? Like, yeah, and he's pretty big, but like, why isn't he bigger? You know what I mean?
Oh, I'll give you my opinion on that, and I think it's because those guys like that. In a lot of cases, man, they're too good.
Yeah,
they're too good.
Yeah, and he may be like perfectly fine with what he's got going on too.
I mean, there's only a few people in the world that can tell. Well, not a few. It's a small group of people that can really discern the difference between mediocre music, good music, and exceptionally good music.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody can do that. I mean, I see it here in Nashville every day where people go, oh man, have you heard so and so? It's so great. And I go, man, I'm a little more prickly than that. I've been here 20 years. I'm not gonna start flipping out over something unless it's going to have to be really good. Yeah. I mean, the bar is set high for all of us. And man, the other thing about that is I see some of the most talented people that you will ever come across in your life in this town. Guys that can sing, write, and play their instruments. Mm-hmm. Amazing raw talent. And
like Vince Gill.
But those are the guys that you're not gonna know about those guys.
Yeah,
because their personality. If you're that in touch and that in tune with your passion of music, and your personality is not gonna jive with the music industry that wants you to run out there to the front of the stage and go, yeah, man, come on, and have flames coming up from behind you. The guys that are really talented, like Chris Stapleton, are going to walk out to the stage. They're going to stand there. They're going to do their thing, and they're going to walk out. Chris Stapleton's not going to walk out on stage and start doing cartwheels across the stage. But that guy's going to out-sing and outright everybody else.
Yeah.
And I'm generalizing, but I mean, that's, the most talented people in Nashville, you're never going to hear, you're never going to know who they are.
Yeah.
You know?
That's crazy to think about that, man.
Because like, how it works, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because you can probably throw a stone and hit three, you know what I mean?
And to be honest with you, it's like asking it's like taking a chef to a restaurant and wanting him to be impressed by the food. It's like, you know, we're the worst people to ask about this stuff because we're the ones that are seeing it through a very small microscope, and we're like, our chops for like music and musicians and what's moving us and what's not and what's good and what's not, dude, we're laser focused into that like in our sleep.
Right.
And so we're the worst people to ask what's going to be popular and what's going to make money in the music business. Yeah. Because all we listen to is all this really obscure avant-garde music that sells a couple records, because popular stuff like that, the masses are not listening to the music that musicians are listening to.
Dude, you know, another good example of that, I'm a huge Wayne Krantz fan.
Totally.
Yeah. Talk about a guy that's too good. You know what I mean? It's like,
you know what I mean, but I'm generalizing, but you know what I mean by that. I mean,
oh yeah, for sure.
It's great.
Yeah, I had somebody was asking a question if you ever got a chance to meet or play with John Prine.
Yeah, John Prine was a friend of mine, man.
Okay, I did not know that.
And to be honest with you, man, I haven't even really had time to even go sit somewhere and process the fact that he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been such obviously, you know, it's been a pretty unbelievable year and a half for all of us, but John was amazing, man. And we've got a lot of mutual friends here. And I did get to record with him when I was about 16 years old, even before I moved up to Nashville. This was way before that. I was probably 21 or something when I moved here. When I was about 16, this guy named Gove Scrivener brought me here to record on a couple of his records. He was still is a really talented guy that moved down to the Gulf Coast. And I met him at this New Year's Eve party one night. And we ended up playing together, and I played on a bunch of his records. And he came up to Nashville, and we recorded with Emmylou Harris, Nancy Griffith, John Prine, and I got to meet a bunch of people up here that have helped me out, and I've stayed friends with him for all those years. But Prine was part of that, and we got to hang with him. And man, he loved to go to Arnold's and eat lunch and hold court, and then he would go to Melrose and shoot pool and drink. I don't want to get it wrong, but it was like he would drink like ginger ale and Jim Beam or something like that. He had this certain drink. That might not be right, but it was a certain drink that he would drink. And he loved to go down to Melrose, man. It was a cool old pool hall here in Nashville, and Brown's Diner, you know, you could catch him hanging out. But yeah, what a cat, man. I mean, it's John Prine, man. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you a couple questions about that. So as a young buck doing a gig like that, you know, so
I didn't know anything back then, man.
Do we still know anything right now?
No,
I mean, that's
I still don't. Yeah.
But I was curious for you as a young player like that, when you get into, because a lot of people talk to me about this too, and you're a perfect example of kind of speaking to this. But when you are a solo artist, like you putting out your own records, for instance, or if you're a hired gun on a record, or if you're a hired gun on a tour,
yeah,
like how are you approaching those? Because like let's first of all, let's talk about studio sessions when you get hired and you're hired to serve the song, right? Yeah. So as a guitarist, can you talk about serving the song? Because I feel like there's a lot of guitarists out there maybe kind of on their way to musical maturity that don't really have that experience yet. And you have such a breadth of knowledge and such a breadth of experience in your career so far that you can roll into any situation and be like, okay, I know what the song needs, and that will support the song, you know?
Yeah. And it's usually something that doesn't have to really be labored over a whole lot. If it's a good song, it's going to play it. I say it, if it's a good song, it's going to play itself, which means I'm not going to sit there and go, oh my God, I can't think of anything to play on this song. If that's the case, it's probably not a good song. Because I'm going to tell you something that's happened to me a million times in this town. When I was younger here and playing on, starting to play on more stuff, and I would leave there some days and go, God, man, that was so hard. What's wrong with you? You couldn't come up with anything to play, couldn't play anything cool or with some feeling or anything I thought that was worth keeping. And that happened about 5 or 10 times, man, where I just get in the car and be driving home and go, God, man, you couldn't come up with anything. And then it dawned on me, or maybe somebody else, kind of like some older guy was like, dude, what are you talking about? This song sucks.
Oh.
and I would go, God, you're right. Because the songs that are really good, they play themselves. It's like, man, you throw a good song at me and I'm going to be able to play something. It's going to be like this. And that's how it should be, And so I hope that answers your question a little bit. I mean, that's kind of my take on that when you say that, because to get into it and really, if you're really having to struggle to try to, and there's guys that are great at that. I'm not as good at that as like layering 5 different guitars. I'm kind of a top down kind of live approach guy where I might put a couple parts on, but I'm not thinking about the second part when the first part's going down. I'm just playing to the song, And so, but there are guys that are incredible about that, that can map all this stuff out and all that. But Nashville will make you extremely aware of how important it is to not overplay, because people in Nashville that hire you for these projects, they want to know that you have all the horsepower in the world, but that you're only going to use a tiny bit of that, and whenever it's appropriate to do that. Like somebody like me, I might get asked 3 or 4 times a year to like let the reins loose and go crazy, and then I still don't want to do it because I'm like, well, it doesn't need to be like a 5-minute guitar solo at the end of the song. Hopefully you're going to fade it out, right? But every once in a while, somebody will go, okay, man, just give us all you got on this ending part or whatever. And I'll go, okay, cool. That'll be fun for a minute, And but usually it's like, whatever you think is going to be appropriate, cut that in half immediately.
Yeah.
And then you might be close to being in the ballpark, because it is just it's so crazy. I learned that really quick. It's like these engineers, man, these guys roasted me. I mean, I had a couple guys just almost have me in tears,
Really?
But I learned a lot from those guys, and they knew I was worthy of yelling at. Anybody else, they wouldn't. It's almost like a rite of passage, some of these old guys yell at you and scare you to death, and that's just another box checked, And so,
do you feel like when you get a good song, Guthrie, do you feel like super energized and like inspired when you're playing on these things where you want to do another take? Like give me one more. I want to do one more, like.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, a lot. Yeah. If some guys that call you, that the project's just going to be, you go, man, if I'm working with that dude, I know the music's going to be great. They won't even tell you who you're working with. I mean, a lot of times, most of the time you get a text message or a phone call and it's, hey man, can you be at, Sound Emporium at 10 o'clock on July 24th? And I'll go, yeah, I can do it. You want acoustic? I'll say, you want acoustic or electric or both, And sometimes they'll go, hey, bring it. We want electric, but throw your acoustic in and maybe your mandolin or something. And I go, okay, great, perfect. So, and then I won't even know who's going to be in the band. I don't know what kind of music we're playing. I don't know who the artist is. I don't know anything except who called me and where I'm going and what time.
Man, that's crazy.
And that's really all I need, because like anybody else that calls that like from out of town or that it's not really experienced in Nashville, because we have a way that things go down here, and that's just kind of how it is. But yeah, I can always tell if somebody's out of town, because they'll go, hey man, we want you to come play guitar on this project, but can we send you the songs ahead of time? And I go, no, don't send me the songs. Because if you send me the songs, I'm going to learn them. I don't want to learn them.
Yeah.
Because if I learn them, then I'm thinking about it, And if I think about it, then when I go in there, it's not fresh. So when I go in there, I want it to be completely fresh. Now we'll get a number chart and we'll listen to the song down one time, and then we'll go in there and 10, 15 minutes later, we're done.
Yeah.
And so I'm lucky because I'm usually always the worst musician in the room. I get to play with all these amazing musicians. You know, I mean, I don't know, you never know who's going to be on this session. So, I'm usually the first take. There's might be a couple mistakes in there, maybe, but usually that's the one that's like, don't not record. Always be recording, because the first time down, there's a lot of happy accidents that might happen.
Mm-hmm.
The more you play that song, the more you're thinking about it, and then you're eliminating things from coming in from. I'm a pretty. I mean, I don't like to get too hippie about it, but I definitely don't like to overthink it. This is what I say. What I've learned is music is meant to be treated with the utmost respect, but not overthought.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to me, there's a big difference there, because I see guys, man, I can, you know, I'm tuned in with what music makes you feel, you know.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to try to talk myself into liking something because somebody told me that I needed to, or overthink somebody's lyric, because it's just, hey, at the end of the day, man, that just might not be a good song. You know, write 500 songs and then 30 of them might be worth recording or something, you know, what they say. But you know, that's my thing, is like, I really, you know, I think that, you know, it needs to be treated with a lot of respect, but not overthought to where the energy and the life dies, because I can hear it immediately. I'm not going to name anybody's name, of course, but there's guys that I know that are really great guitar players. They are physically great guitar players, but I can hear the wheels turning with every note. And to me, I'm bored, because there's no life there. There's no danger there. There's no excitement there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would rather you come hear me play and watch me literally fall apart and jump right back in. But at least I'm hanging on the edge of my seat. And when I drive home that night, I go, hey, man, that was fun. Took a couple chances, you know?
Yeah.
Rather than playing it safe. The time to play it safe is if somebody hires you to go back them up. Like if I'm playing with John Oates, well, of course, John lets me stretch out. I've been really lucky, because the guys that I play with, they let me stretch out, because that's why I'm there.
Right.
And so, but like I said, if it's time to go, I'm going to put the throttle forward until somebody gives me that freedom, or I sense that opportunity is coming where I can kind of push the envelope a little bit and give a little more horsepower. Until that moment comes up, I'm gonna play appropriately to whatever song's going down, you know. So I kind of, you know, I enjoy doing that. I learned how to do that when I was a kid by playing down at the Frank Brown Songwriters Festival on the Gulf Coast with guys like Mickey Newberry and Hank Cochran and Red Lane, all these legendary country songwriters, and they would yell at me and go, hey, man, you sound good, but you're playing on my vocals, man. You need to quit doing that.
Yeah.
I'm like a kid, and these guys are like grizzled. Mickey Newberry's got oxygen thing coming out of his nostrils, and he's smoking and drinking tequila at 7 o'clock in the morning at the beach house and yelling at me because I'm playing over his vocals. So I'm like, yeah, sorry, you know.
Have you ever shown up to a session not knowing who was going to be on it, and you get to play with someone that you haven't got to play with before that you idolize?
Yeah, let me tell you about that. The first time so all that stuff happened when I with recording with John and those guys before I moved here, and then about 5 years later I moved here, and then the first session I did was with a guy that I met from the Gulf Coast, because there was a big songwriters festival down there in basically my hometown on the beach, where all these Nashville guys came down. That was like my little vein or thread that connected me to Nashville. I was really lucky.
That's dope.
It was really cool. That was really, really a cool thing. And so I met this guy, Tim Hinckley, who was a English keyboard player, and he played with bands like Mata Hoople and Van Morrison and all these old, like, he played with all these cats, right? And he was a cat, you know. And so I met him, and then I came to Nashville, and he knew I was in Nashville, so he books me on this session. He said, man, I want you to play the mandolin on this session. And so I'm like, okay, cool, man. I got a recording session, and like I'm going over to Berry Hill to, like, you know, this studio. So I show up over there, and I got my mandolin, and I walk into the studio, and it's this South African artist who I have no idea who it was. But the band was like Willie Weeks on the bass and Ian Wallace on the drums, that played on all that Bob Dylan and David Lindley stuff Like,
What?
he's since passed away. But I walk in there and I'm like, and Tim's playing keyboard. I go, Tim, what am I doing here, man? This is Willie Weeks and Ian Wallace sitting here. He goes, yeah, man, and you're going to play the mandolin. I said, okay, awesome. I'm in. And we did. We recorded these songs and I played the mandolin. And it was, Willie goes, man, I'm grooving on that mandolin. I was like, really, are you?
Oh my gosh, dude, that's crazy, man. Oh.
Then I ran, then he was playing with Vince Gill for a long time. And then I'd see him at Staples trying to find the right kind of pen. And this is like, that's Nashville though, man. You go to the coffee shop. Dude, I go to the same coffee shop. Like I said earlier, I'm not bragging or complaining, but I do live in what has turned out to be a pretty cool neighborhood over here, pretty desirable neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I live by myself. I got good coffee and good food right around the corner. I walk up there. So I go to the same coffee shop every morning to get coffee. And I'll run into Robin Ford there all the time. And I was breaking up with this girl the other day, and Robin's on the way to fly to Italy. And we're out there talking to by the car. And he's like, we didn't even say anything about a guitar. We're just having coffee. And he goes, man, what are you doing today? I was like, man, to be honest with you, I'm going to meet this girl for about an hour and we're splitting up. He goes, oh, congratulations. I said, hey, yeah, you have no idea, buddy.
Oh my gosh, dude.
It's fun to live here and kind of be in the middle of it all. David Greer will come up there and we'll sit and he'll have coffee. I don't know if you know David Greer. He's the world's greatest flat picker ever.
I don't. I should check him out.
Dude, you got to check this guy out. He's the most innovative flat picker since Tony Rice. I mean, the guy's unbelievable musician. And so he hangs out up there. It's just fun, man. You go, Nashville is so concentrated with music and musicians. There's no other place like this on the planet. And it's growing so fast, and there's so many people here now, but it's better. It's better. I mean, all these, here's the thing that happens in Nashville is everybody will complain about how bad commercial country music is, but they'll never leave town. That's where the work is. They'll all stay here because they know that, like, if you go to any other town, there's a ceiling there. Nashville has no ceiling. So if you want to move here and be the world's greatest harmonica player and win a Grammy, you can do that here. If you want to make millions of dollars writing songs and live out in the country, this is the place for you. So there's all kinds of hip hop guys here now. There's all kinds of R&B and jazz. And I mean, Nashville is no longer just like a boots and hats town anymore. It's just a great place to live. I mean, Larry Carlton, I'm going to see Larry Carlton Friday, and NAMM shows starts tomorrow. So we're going to get involved in the NAMM show. I'm playing tomorrow night with the horn section. We're going to get a bunch of guys out.
I saw that you're doing a residency, right?
Yeah, well, our bass player buddy from Trigger Hippie, when I was in that band for a minute, we did a summer tour that was like Steve Gorman from the Black Crowes, Joan Osborne, Jackie Green, Nick Goverick, and then I played some lead guitar in that band. But they got a whole band that they do. And so it's Nick is my buddy, and he's the bass player that plays with us. He owns the restaurant. So we go down there and play. Nothing like having somebody that's like owning the PA, It's like, yeah, let's hire this guy. He's got a great band. Like, let's hire this guy. He owns his own bar. So we can go down there and like start at 7:15 if we want instead of 7 o'clock, And
yeah, that's great, dude.
Whatever. So it's fun. I would rather play if I'm going to go out and play for nothing and just it's got to be a lot of fun with really good music that I like to play with a lot of really good friends in a very cool environment.
Yeah, that's so cool, man.
Other than that, man, I don't want to go do it. I'm lucky. I'm spoiled at this point. I'm just spoiled,
Yeah. My buddy Mario was saying he appreciates your car analogy. So you got a fan there. Mario sent me this really cool. I don't know how I missed this.
Man, I love cars.
But Mario sent me this video today of you and Brett Papa and Tim Pierce.
Oh yeah.
And I hadn't seen that yet. And Tim did that one video of like, look at this, watch this iPhone video of Guthrie playing. And you were doing all the pedal steel stuff that you do, that you crush.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that's the one thing that I've never got into a situation where I need to learn that stuff because I don't play that style of music. But it takes so much facility that I adore it so much to watch someone do it who does it well. Because you got to have the coordination of what you're doing and be able to play in time and intonation is a huge part of that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yours is like so flawless, dude. It's just like, like, yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, a couple things about that. First of all, that kind of music, I like to blend all those styles together. So when I heard Danny Gatton for the first time, I thought, man, this is really amazing, because this guy is the first guy I've ever heard blend country, blues, jazz, Latin, all into one solo.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, man, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. That's what I love this. And so I started going, well, the country stuff is really it's funky, like Jerry Reed. I mean, there's some funk to it. There's Latins of a train. The train beat can kind of weave into like some of the Latin grooves a little bit. I mean, I kind of like to superimpose all that stuff over there. I'm not saying I'm doing anything any different than anybody else, but I do see that those styles are all really related to me, and it's the same fundamentals over all the different kinds of music that's working. So I just kind of throw it all in there when I feel like doing it. But the other thing about the pedal steel stuff is when I was, if I ever sat in anywhere and somebody had a B-bender guitar, I could never play it because I'd go to bend on it and the thing would move and it would, the thing would bend, and I didn't want it to because it's on the neck thing. And I'm like, I don't know what this B-bender stuff is. It sounds cool when other people do it, but it's definitely not for me.
Yeah. And
so I just learned, and now everybody goes, 2 questions I get asked a lot is, are you using a B-bender and are you using a compressor? And the answer is no to both. I don't own any B-bender guitars or any compressors at all.
So yeah, you can hear it.
If you have a good tube amp and it's cranked up loud enough to where it's actually doing something, then you don't need a compressor. Unless you go for like a funk rhythm part with a Strat, that's a different tool. That's like a tool.
Right, like Corey Wong, like the Corey Wong thing,
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. But if you think that a back pickup Telecaster into a Fender amp to get a country sound has to have a compressor, throw your compressor away if you're just keeping it for that.
Yeah, I'm gathering that you do dig Roy Buchanan.
Oh, this question here. Oh man,
yeah.
Roy Buchanan is one of my all-time favorites ever.
Yeah. You can tell, you can hear stuff come out in your playing sometimes. Like you're definitely you, like what we were talking about earlier. It's like when you distill all of your influences, it's like that one article that John Mayer was talking about. Like I only sound like me because I feel like I'm doing a bad Clapton impression. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's what's cool about your playing and what gravitates, like why I'm gravitating towards you as a player and like watching what you do. But it seems to me like you have a love of so many different genres of music, and it's almost like you have to bat them away sometimes while you're playing because you're like, oh shit, I just you know what I mean, like but it's all coming together to be you. Because I've heard you play some super greasy funky stuff.
Oh, thanks.
And and analyzing it and sitting there with my guitar and like listening to what you're doing, and I love guitarists like that. And what you said earlier about there's no danger in it. My favorite musicians, regardless of the instrument, is people who are willing to take risks.
Yeah.
And take risks, be adventurous, explore musical space.
Yeah.
And I love, you can tell that you like that. Like you really enjoy it. Yeah.
I love it. And I also love to hear other people doing it. I mean, I went and saw Robin down here at the 5 Spot, this little club down the street here. Great little dive bar music venue. And it was Robin and my friend Doug Belote on drums.
Oh, he's awesome, man.
Shane Terrio on guitar. And then our friend Steve Mackey that I work with in a bunch of different bands on bass. And so killer band. The guys have never played together before. Robin and Doug have played before, but Steve had never played bass with them, and Shane had never played guitar with them. And Robin sent them a bunch of songs at the last minute, and they just did all this stuff. But I went in there. I actually took Billy Gibbons in there that night, and me and him and his wife sat there at the end of the table and watched this whole set. And of course, a bunch of other guitar players and musicians in there and stuff. But those guys, you could tell that they were improvising, and I mean they were improvising in the structures of the songs. Like they would be playing something and Robin would just call out, okay, B minor, and they'd go B minor, and it would go to this whole other place, and he's calling some changes out on the fly. It was very loose, but it was loose at the level of those guys.
Right. Yeah.
So their loose is everybody else is tight,
Yeah. Right.
So
that's like Bruce Hornsby does that stuff live.
Robin knows exactly what he's doing, but he is a true improviser.
I loved. Did you see his post the one day about his custom or his signature PRS guitar? How he made that headstock like the '70s Fender headstock. How it was fatter.
No,
did you see that?
I didn't even know he had a signature model PRS.
It looks like something's coming because he showed it. I don't know if he was supposed to show it yet, but the headstock is a bigger PRS headstock, and he was like, I kind of wanted to do something funky like the '70s Strats.
That's cool.
It's pretty neat, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk because we're running out of time. I want to talk about Artist Works and like what you're doing with that, with lessons and all that. Can you tell everybody about what you got going on there?
Well, I like to say this line first. I usually don't open with this when it comes to the education thing, but I'm gonna start saying this. I'm a professional, not a professor.
Okay, I can dig it.
I like to throw that line out there. That's like my little tagline. But the reason why I say that is because I got into education has become a pretty big income stream for me over the past 5 or 6 years. And I've always taught a little bit, like if I was playing downtown and with Don doing the chicken picking stuff, and I get polarized as a country guitar player, which to me, I'm just a guitar player that plays music.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the music is, I play it. I just happen to have a country gig for 4 years. And so that's what I play when it's country music. If it's blues, I play the blues.
Right.
And so I just like to play music. But I had people that were like, hey man, can you show us, Belmont students, hey man, can you show us how to just go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord? Because we're taking all these jazz classes and we still don't know how to go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. I go, yeah, man, give me $50, come over. And, we didn't have iPhones or anything back then, but I'd show them a couple of licks. And then that just kept going. And, now as the social media thing increased, Artist Works was like, hey, we want somebody to do a country guitar course. I was about to sign with another company. They called me. I was out in the desert in Arizona, and I took the phone call. And they were like, hey, man, we want you to, we've been looking at a bunch of different guys, but we like you because, you're a good player, whatever. But you're also very, active on your social media. We know you're going to also advertise what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, yeah, that's part of how we make a living now is we got to be on social media and what we're like, this kind of stuff. So I said, sure, man, let's do it. So we did it. We developed the curriculum. They're a great company. I knew as soon as I got off the phone with those guys, I went to their website and I saw Brian Sutton, Nathan East, Paul Gilbert, Mike Marshall, Daryl Anger. I mean, I knew a bunch of guys that were already working at that company. I was like, man, if these guys, I know these guys, if they're involved in this, I don't even need to ask any more questions because this guy would not be involved in this company if it was this many people that I know and trust and respect would not be a part of this company if there was anything shady going on. So I dropped the other company that I was going to sign with and I signed with them and we did the curriculum and put it all together. And now I've got 6 years later, I've got over 15 or 1,600 students around the world.
Man.
That's a subscription-based thing where there's an online over 200 lessons it's geared towards country guitar, but all the fundamentals on that are applicable to any genre of music. If I was sitting here and had a funk rhythm course, I would be teaching you the same stuff that changed my life as a kid when I was growing up. And that is, I can't give it the big secret away. No, I'm totally kidding. No, what changed my life when I was a kid was I learned basically what people call the cage system. I learned my chord shapes up the neck and I followed that rule and it opened up the fingerboard for me. And man, that people go, well, dude, I can always hear the chord changes when you're playing. I can always hear a melody. And it's because I'm playing the notes out of the chords that you're actually hearing going by in the music that's being played.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very simple concept, but the trick is to making it sound like music. And so that's, if I have any talent or any, gift or whatever people call it, I just grew up in the right environment and I'm able to play a little bit of guitar. But if I can do anything, I've got a good ear. I don't know any theory or anything, but when I hear something, I can take it from there and make something happen with it because of my ear and knowing and going, okay, if I hear a couple notes, I'm going to be able to take that and build on it and tell a story and have it actually be something that feels and sounds like music rather than just a bunch of licks and a bunch of exercises. And there's some simple fundamentals combined with the spirit of making music that can get you there. And that's what I like to try to teach.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
You know?
Yeah, because it's I feel like I'm 42, man. Like I just turned 42.
I'm 42 also. I was going to say 42 too, but that would make me 422. I don't think I'm going to make it that far, but
it's interesting because I feel like I'm still learning. Like I have so much to learn, and like I'm in a rut right now with getting to.
Well, don't tell anybody that because nobody else knows but you.
Well, but you know what I mean.
When's your birthday?
June.
Okay, mine's February. Okay, cool.
Okay, so you're a little bit older than me.
You're looking good, man. You don't have as much salt and pepper going on as I do.
Not yet. I'm trying to let these go. I might taking my daughter out for Halloween. I might be Wolverine for her this year. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Place I haven't gone to that chapter yet.
Yeah, man. I'm a daddy.
To have kids, first you have to find somebody that will hang out with you. And it's like, for me, it's that old joke about, do you want to be a member of a club that would actually have you as a member? Hey man, I'm starting to question your morality if you're hanging out with me for more than a couple weeks.
Oh man. Well, if you get in that club, you get a members only jacket, bro.
Yeah,
so
right.
You can pop your collar.
Kidding, by the way, but whatever. Yeah, to be honest with you, man, I mean, I'm lucky and fortunate to be doing this every day and even and to even have a seat at the table, man. You
deserve it though.
It's a big old table with a lot of guys that know exactly what they're doing. I'm guarantee you, of all these guys that are out there right now, I am definitely the least educated of all of them. And so I will say this. One thing I have learned is my lack of education in conventional schooling and music has enabled me to be a better teacher of music, because all I'm teaching is what worked for me, and navigating my way through what I have now at 42 is experience versus what I had before was no education and no experience. So at least now I've got one, but I know what me and my peers in Nashville and most guys that I talk to, even really heavy jazz musicians that teach out in Colorado, two of my greatest friends out there are heavy duty jazz players. And this guy, Steve, he goes, dude, I'm looking at playing this stuff the same way you're looking at it. It's chord shapes, targeting these tones, playing over the changes, trying to make something connect and make music. So if you start thinking too much theory and it can really bog you down,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, even though I went to music school, like I was a songwriting major at Berkeley. So like I went there to be like focused on my craft and making my songs better, arranging things better. I wasn't super worried about being a better guitar player.
Yeah.
Because I knew that would come naturally. I would keep working and chasing my tail. You know what I mean? Like in a good way. Like not chasing my tail. I would keep chasing the carrot, I guess.
Yeah.
But I get into that situation now where if I get on stage, when we had our first gig back about a month ago, and I was so pumped to play. That first gig back, I was like, oh my God, to make music with other human beings again is going to be so cathartic.
Yeah.
And I get up there and I'm like, I'm all night tonight. I'm just going to listen. Before I start blowing, I'm going to listen to see what's being created. What's the bed that's happening here?
Yeah.
And how am I going to lay in it? And that's how I approach starting every solo, is I'm like, I don't want to like lick out. I want to get in with whatever's going on in these cats' heads, like whatever they're creating. And I think that's a big, that didn't used to be the way I was. I was like, I know these things. You know what I mean?
And that's great to know those things, but they're only going to work the way that they're kind of described to work in a certain situation.
Right.
Like if what people tell you is the minor scale, those notes aren't going to work over every minor chord in every situation, because every song and every interpretation of this stuff is constantly changing and it's different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are there some classic examples of things that are going to always work, like the blues and stuff like that? Yeah, of course. We know that the blues is the blues, and we have that progression, and it's not going to be reinvented every time. But what I'm saying is when people start playing and adhering to those hard, fast rules too much, it starts sounding like it. I hear it every time. And so what I do is, and this goes back to my kind of shoot from the hip approach to everything, is the last thing I want to do when I go to a gig is start thinking about anything. Man, I don't want to be thinking about anything. And now I've gotten to the place where I don't. I mean, I grew up playing in bars, and I grew up playing, and a lot of guys here, we grew up playing in where you're thrown on stage and it's like sink or swim. Mm-hmm. You're at a bar now. There's a lot of loud people out in the crowd. We're about to bust into something, and hey, you're sitting in. We're in C, dude. Come on, here we go. Shuffle, whatever it is. And I'm 10 years old, and some drunk's behind me trying to turn the volume knob all the way up because I'm too scared to turn the electric guitar up. I mean, these are all things that are like, hey, man, let's go. It's time to go.
Yeah.
If I go to a gig, I feel very liberated that I'm not thinking about anything. And that's just because of doing it for so long. I know that nobody's going to get hurt. And how bad can it be at this point? As long as your gear's working and you're like, okay, here I'm set up. I got my amp right here. My pedal board's right here. I got the guitar. I got all my strings are on here. It's in tune. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to play it like it's maybe it's the first time every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to go to a gig and be thinking about, oh man, if we play a shuffle, I'm going to try to work out that chromatic or diminished lick going from the 4 to the 5 chord. Man, that if I start thinking like that, take all my guitars away from me and give me a job at the post office.
Right.
I don't want to think about it like that, man. I just want to be in the moment, creating music at the time that it's going down, and rock on.
Yeah. And then you end up making probably fun discoveries doing that too, of like things that you maybe have never played before that you're like, oh.
It's funny because it's funny you say that. And here's something that I had to get over too, that I'll share with, maybe somebody can get something out of this. But going into the studio and recording more and listening to yourself back, whether it's in the control room, a lot of times we're not going to listen to records we play on. They're gone and it's somebody you don't even know and whatever, I don't ever hear that stuff. But if it's your own record maybe, or something you do like that you played on, or it's a live iPhone clip of your gig the other night and you're just listening back to it. A lot of times I'll go, man, I thought I was having because I can still get inside my own head and go, for me, it's more like, how is everything feeling? I know our playing is going to be pretty good, but how is everything feeling? Is it like, are we getting a good tone? Is the volume level okay for this place? Like, those are the things that I think about. It's like, okay, I want to make sure my tone sounds good. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not really worried so much about the playing part of it as I am like just, these days I've been kind of, because I don't work on my tone enough. That's what I'm thinking about is, okay, does this sound good? So, but anyway, what I was going to tell you is the nights that you're up there and you think that you're having like a really bad night, those are the nights that everybody in the crowd comes up to you and goes, God, man, you're on fire tonight. You sound incredible.
Yep.
Or you think you made these, because we're up there experienced and we've got the guitar in our hands. We've got the strings under our fingers. We're feeling it. We're hearing it. We're creating it. We're all these things. We're like viewing it from our perspective and our, what we're perceiving it as. Well, by the time all that shit gets out to the crowd or through the speakers in the control room, you're then hearing it as a listener. Uh-huh. So if I hear some iPhone clip of a solo or some rhythm, just me playing some gig the other night, if I 2 days or 3 days later hear that on somebody's Instagram story wherever you happen to hear it. And I'm now sitting in my living room and I'm away from it for 2 or 3 days and I'm hearing it like they heard it. If I think like, man, that was a horrible mistake, that was I didn't mean to play that note, or my pick fell in between the string, whatever, like, man, I had glue on my finger, whatever it was, where you go, God, I remember that. And that was like, to me, I made a huge mistake. You listen to it back and you go, not only was it not a mistake, but that actually worked.
Right. Or it's super hip.
Or it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what the way we perceive stuff, and it's good that we are that hyper perceptive to what we're doing, because that's why it does make us decent musicians or decent guitar players or whatever, because we are laser focusing in on those little minute details of going, oh man, you know, I do want it to be good. I'm not diminishing I don't want people to think like, oh, Guthrie sounds like he just doesn't care about what he's doing. It's like, no, I care about it to the utmost extent.
Yeah.
That's why I approach it the way I do, because it works for me.
Yeah.
You know? But
amen, dude.
You know, I just think at the end of the day, man, we can really get inside our own heads, and we just need to, like, man, take it easy on yourself. Try the best you can. Learn from music that you really like. Don't learn a bunch of shit somebody told you need to learn because they told you. If you listen to Miles Davis and you don't like it, that's okay.
Yeah,
you know, a lot. I mean, I love it, but I'm just using examples. Like, and there's iconic music that people would crucify me for if I said I didn't like it. Hey, man, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I get in my car, I love to drive, and so I listen to a lot of music in my car. And so, you know, if I have an hour or two during the day where I'm not doing anything, I either go up the street and go swimming, or I jump in my car and I drive around East Nashville and blast music. And so, but man, I'll be honest with you, man. I'm not a big Led Zeppelin fan, and I'm not a big Beatles fan. I don't listen to that music. I don't put those records on. I don't know what's on those records. I'm just not a big fan of that music. I put on all this other weird shit that I listen to. You know, it's like, and I've got buddies that would be like, man, you're out of your mind. How can you not like this music? And I go, well, it's not that I don't like it. It's good music. I just didn't obsess over it like most other people did when I was a kid, because I didn't grow up around it.
Yeah, that's fair, though. I mean, it's 100% fair.
But that's how it worked, you know. So I don't know how to play any of these cover songs, man. If anybody, I'm the worst. If anybody called me, and said, "Hey, man, we got a gig downtown tonight. We want you to come play. We're playing all 70s rock cover songs," I'd be like, man, not only do I know any of that music, I don't even have gear that sounds like those records.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I've gotten lucky and gotten into doing my own thing. But I know we got completely off the subject for the artist work stuff. Hey, here's the thing. I know we're about to get out of here. I will take this moment and say, please check out all the stuff that is going on online. I have to try to promote that a little bit. There's I just did some photos with this great photographer yesterday. I lost 20 pounds during COVID. I'm working on my tan for a change. I'm trying to keep up with the youngsters around here. It's a tough neighborhood, man.
Get it, bro.
I'm trying to get it. But all joking aside, I did about to redo the website and have some good content on there, trim the fat a little bit. Instagram's a big one. TikTok, I'm starting to get on there a little bit because I've had some youngsters tell me I need to. And then Facebook fan page, personal page, there's all that stuff. YouTube channel is a big one that I'm growing with these teaser lessons to promote everything that I'm doing. And also, of course, Artist Works, which I just got my email from them today. And that school is going gangbusters. It keeps going up big time every month. So getting a lot of positive feedback for the education stuff. Like I told you earlier, I like to teach really concrete concepts that'll get you making music and thinking a little bit differently about that, how to approach it. So, and I also do private Skype and Zoom lessons from this room right here, which looks just like this, except I'll be holding a guitar.
Nice.
I do, anywhere from 1 to 3 of those a day,
That's great, dude. Good for you, man.
That's become a cool little interest. Not much touring. I haven't toured much since Oates is off the road and that kind of stuff, but hopefully get back out on the road a little bit. I love to travel and I love to do all that stuff. And so that's the only thing. I'm starting to book some more stuff around Nashville, play Rudy's Jazz Club and some different places like that. But the live stuff is starting to come back big time. But yeah, man, that's all I got as far as think I've given you everything I got, man.
Well, I hope when I come down in October, I hope you're playing around town so I can come see you play, man. I'd love to do that. So,
yeah, chances are, yeah.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to ask you: have you done any gigs with Josh Hunt on the drums?
That's who. Yeah, for the past 2 months, I've been playing every Wednesday and Thursday with Josh Hunt, and
Dude,
so we just booked about 6 gigs with me and Josh Hunt and Ted Pecchio on bass.
Ooh. So Ted just played on Oliver Wood's record, and he's on the road with them. Oh man, he's a killing bass player.
I had to change up the rhythm section a little bit. I usually use Steve Mackey, and Pete Abbott was playing with me for a while there, and then I started using just different people. We have an amazing music community here, so we'll use like Nick Buda will play with us some, Josh Hunt, Derek Phillips, Wes Little, Marcus Finney. There's a group of guys that are just great drummers, and then we've got a list of bass players. You know, if one guy's busy, we call our another buddy, and everybody's cool with it because we're all working. So
yeah,
I'm lucky. We got a hell of a group of people here to pull from. So
yeah, Josh is a monster. Anytime I've seen him play with Jack Pearson, I'm just like, oh my gosh, dude.
Oh man, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well let's do. You ready to do this lightning round get down with me?
Sure, man. See if I can keep up with you.
So the first question is gonna suck for you because of you're not a big Beatles fan. But my first question is always usually like Lennon or McCartney. But let's change it.
I'm gonna tell you right now, it's Paul McCartney.
Okay, well let's stick with that. That's me too. Paul McCartney's my fave. All right, milkshake or root beer float?
I'm going milkshake.
Okay, Princeton with a 10 or a 12-inch speaker?
12.
HSS or SSS for a Strat?
I have no idea what that means.
Like humbucker, single coil, or all single coils?
Oh, all single coils.
Okay. Ocean or lake?
Ocean.
Okay. Jethro Tull or the Eagles?
Jethro Tull.
Okay. Hot chicken or barbecue?
Barbecue.
Hardtail or floating bridge?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going hardtail.
All right, cool. Roller coaster or haunted house?
Give me the roller coaster.
All right. And then the last one, Guthrie. Sometimes this is hard for people. Sometimes it's easy. If you could take one album, doesn't have to be your favorite album of all time, but one record that you could erase from your memory that you've never heard it before. So just so you could go back and listen to it for the first time again, like right now. What album would that be?
Oh my God. This is a tough one. Oh man. Oh God. I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
So think about, what's a record that like helped you grow as a musician that if that helps you narrow it down a little bit?
Then I want to erase from my mind forever.
No, you would erase from your memory, so you've never heard it, just so you could go back and listen to it for the first time and experience it again. For the first time.
I thought you meant like what's the worst band ever that you don't ever.
Oh no. We don't roll like that here. No.
Okay, all right. Well, then you have to edit a lot of my comments out of this thing. So anyway, okay. God, man, I would have to say, can I give 3 answers?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to go 3 answers. I'm going to say Ry Cooder, Bop Till You Drop. Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to say oh man, this is a real tough one. I'm going to say Robin Ford's first Blue Line record.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. All right, you survived it. You survived the lightning round get down. There you go.
Those are some
dude.
tough
I've had so many different random answers, and I love them all. You guys it's so fun to play that game. So
oh my God. Well, those questions, when people start asking about your favorite song and your favorite record and your favorite guitar and stuff like that, those are big rabbit holes.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. That's why I asked it.
Those are so impossible to answer with one name, you know.
Yeah. I know.
So
I know.
that's why you do it to us.
Of course. Guthrie, dude, thanks so much, man. This was so much fun. I really appreciate you hanging. And
Yeah,
everybody, you got to go check out every single thing that Guthrie has played on. And if you're not super familiar, there's a ton of stuff, clips of him playing all over social media, YouTube, and everything.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
And check.
I'm always up for this. Nobody likes hearing themselves talk more than I do.
Well, my friend, this was a blast. Hang out for a second, but everybody, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, buddy.